Hi P3s, it's Kate here, and I'm just going to have a little chat to you about food waste and my journey with food waste, okay? So, I would of course like to have done this in person, but here we are. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you is that it's an interesting position to be in, to even have to think about food waste, isn't it? So when I think about this, I think about the privilege that I have to even have to be worried about it or to even think about it. Because there are so many people around the world who, I think if you brought up the topic of food waste with them, they'd say, what do you mean? Food waste isn't even a possibility for many people in the world, okay? So I think it's really important that we, first of all, acknowledge that, you know, we have a lot of privilege. I think it tells us a lot that we have to even think about why do we have so much food waste? And how are we in that position to even have to think about it? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to tell you first of all, well, I told you that second thing, I guess, is that when I was your age or younger as well, so when I was little, I was a terribly fussy eater, horribly fussy. I think I liked eating bread. I like pasta with cheese on it, Vegemite, if you know what that is from Australia. It's like a spread that you put on. Yeah. I didn't like bits in my food. And my poor mum would get so frustrated with me because I was not a big eater either. And I was very, very fussy. Unfortunately, I didn't think so much about where my food was coming from. I never thought about the leftovers that I had or the food that was being thrown out. I didn't have to think about it. I just sort of said, yeah, I don't want that. And my poor mum had to deal with it. Okay, so that was me growing up, and it was really only until about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, that I really started to think about my food waste and waste in general. So a few years ago, when I lived in Germany, and I started to think about my rubbish that I had. So seeing if I could reduce how much plastic I used, and I got pretty good at it. I ended up having a jar about this big that I would have rubbish in each month. So I would not even have a rubbish bin at home. So that was something I really was trying very, very hard to have no plastic at home. I didn't use packaging, but luckily I had good stores around that I could get package-free food, so I didn't have to buy things with plastic in them. But anyway, yeah. So that led to, I looked at everything that was being thrown away. And of course, one of those things is food. And I started looking at leftovers, or the things that were the parts of the food that were being thrown out. And I remember going into my fridge and going, oh my goodness, I've got so many things in here that I haven't eaten yet. And I was a little bit upset with myself because there was a lot of food waste that I hadn't really thought about. So then I thought, okay, let's see what I can do, and I researched it, what I can do to reduce that. And then I started looking at all sorts of I took notice of the things that I was throwing away. So I documented it, I wrote everything down, and then I went, right, what can I do with this? So I had like the stems of the broccoli. I don't eat meat, so I didn't have leftover meat, but I had lots of leftover parts of the vegetables. I had leaves off things that were like, oh, they're not so great. And I worked out ways and I researched ways that I could use them. And I found lots of cool things. I made chippies, like hot chips out of the potato peels. They were delicious. That's a really good recipe. I roasted the stems off the broccoli. Gosh, I used everything that I could. And then I found a company that made worm farms. It sounds a bit gross, but they're really cool. And I ended up having a worm farm in my kitchen for a few years. It sounds gross, but you don't smell it. And those little wormies eat through all of the vegetable scraps. It's really cool. So I would just put that in there. And the worms would be happy. They'd make some really good fertilizer for my plants. And everything else I used up. Everything. So here in Denmark, it's a little bit different, but I'll get to that later. Okay. So the next step for me in my food waste was that I started working with an environmental group, and we did lots of different projects. I did lots of workshops about zero waste. And one of the projects that we did were these like food rescue parties. And what we did is that we went to only two supermarkets over 2 days. And we worked with the supermarkets to rescue all the fruits and vegetables that they would normally throw out. Okay? There was enough to feed over 150 people. 2 supermarkets, 2 days, if you can imagine that. It's pretty insane. And we would be at a place where anybody could come and anybody could join us. And we would bring a chopping board and a knife, and there would be some cool music on, and we would make really beautiful salads and a big hot pot, I guess you call it. And we would all sit there and enjoy this rescue food, which was perfectly good. And it was really quite shocking to see how much perfectly good fruit and vegetables were thrown out in the rubbish bin for different reasons. And it was really hard for me to understand why this was happening. Perfectly good food, enough to feed 150 people. 2 supermarkets over 2 days. It's crazy. So from that, I started doing more research and I started becoming more interesting because I wanted to know and I didn't understand. So a friend and I then, it's not, we probably shouldn't have done it, but I wanted to go and see. There's like a place called the wholesale fruit and vegetable places. And that's where all the supermarkets go to, and the small places that have their fruits and vegetables. They go and buy their stuff from this wholesale place. So it's a huge haul. And there was one of these places where I lived quite close by. And he said, come and I will show you how much fruit and vegetables are really thrown away. This is before they even get to the supermarket and thrown away from there. So when I went there, I have to tell you that I was so upset about what I saw that I was in tears. It was shocking. There were huge big dumpsters, like dumpster bins, full of perfectly good fruits and vegetables. So, and I've attached so there'll be a little thing of some photos, and you can actually see some of those pictures of how much is actually thrown out. And we would take a couple of bags with us of the things so we could use them at home. And I honestly didn't go to the supermarkets for a long time to buy fruits and vegetables because I had enough. I had enough from it sounds gross, I know, getting food from the rubbish bins, but it wasn't really rubbish bins. They were sort of put there. And I wanted to find out why. And I did a lot of reading, I learned a lot. So I want to tell you first about a challenge that I did for myself. I decided to do a little challenge, and I wanted to see how long I could go for without buying any food. Nothing. I didn't want to buy anything. Because I wanted to challenge myself about the way that we think about food waste. And I thought, there's enough out here. There's enough out here to live off without having to go and buy all the pretty looking fruit and vegetables from the supermarket. So these are the things that I did. And I can tell you, I went for 2 months without buying any food. The first thing that I did was I looked in my cupboards and my fridge. I called it cupboard foraging. Foraging is where you go and collect food, usually from outside. So I used what I had at home, and I went into food sharing groups. So where I lived, there were different communities that would say, hey, I've got this much food left over from a party. If anyone wants to come and get it, you can get it. Sometimes small businesses would say, oh my goodness, we've got so much bread left over today. If you want to come and get it, instead of it being thrown out, which was really cool. And there's a lot happening with that. A lot of people can just live off that really easily. It was very good. And you feel good when you share your food with other people too. I would share with friends sometimes the produce, the fruits and vegetables that I got from the big bins that were perfectly good, I would share with my friends, and sometimes they would swap something that I needed for me. Yeah. And what else did I do? Oh yeah, I went to the bins, to the big bins. Yeah, and I think we need to look at that a little bit differently too, because when you think, oh, gross, like honestly, it wasn't. They were perfectly clean and perfectly, just perfect fruit and vegetables, yeah. So yeah, that's what I did. I was very creative with my cooking. I found it really interesting coming up with cool different recipes to use with the things that I found. The only reason why I swapped was because my mum came to visit from Australia, and she actually came to the dumpsters with me once. That was really funny. She had a lot of fun, and she was quite shocked at what she saw as well. Yeah, so back to what I learnt. I did a lot of research on why this was happening, because I thought, why on earth is this perfectly good food being thrown out? And there's a couple of reasons that I found. And a lot of it is to do with our choices and our privilege, right? So when you go to the supermarket, you look at fruits and vegetables. We look for things that look perfect, that, you know, we sit there and go, oh, I don't want those bananas, or that banana's on its own, I don't want that one, or that apple has a little bit of a spot on it. Now, let's think about this. Fruit and vegetables grow naturally, right? Carrots, when you grow them at home, they're a little wonky. They're not perfectly straight all the time. Apples have spots on them. And actually, the best bananas are the ones that do have spots on them. They're the sweetest. So one of the reasons is a lot of food is being thrown out is because it doesn't look perfect. Like in our mind, in our consumer mind, that we're the people who buy it, we don't want to buy the things that don't look perfect. Okay, so a lot of the times they're throwing things out that this banana isn't the right shape, this carrot isn't the right shape, these potatoes are too small. Okay, so even before the food gets to, even before the food gets to the supermarket, 1/3 of the fruits and vegetables that are grown are just thrown away because they don't look right. And that's kind of our fault, isn't it? Because we want it to look perfect. Okay? I'm sorry. Must be some dust around. So, yeah, that was one of the reasons. Another reason was, so the fruits and vegetables, about the systems. Okay, so a lot of the times fruits and vegetables are overproduced, and then the supermarket says, actually, we don't need that right now. And then that whole big crop of potatoes or pumpkins or whatever is grown, they can't sell them. So they're thrown out. And that's what happened in the dumpsters that I went to. There were whole big bins of avocados and cherries that were just thrown out because, well, the supermarket didn't need them. Yeah, so there's a big problem in our system. So a lot of these things are, the fruits and vegetables are just grown and then thrown out. So if we're talking about resources, that is a lot, mountains, pyramids high of fruits and vegetables that are thrown out, things that are using our resources that are not renewable, that are just thrown out. Okay? So yeah, I could keep talking about food waste all day long because it's something that I find is a very, very important topic. Yeah, and we don't see it. So when things are thrown out, we don't see it. We just go, oh, it's in the bin, it's gone. Okay, but they're not gone. They're always like they rot. They go they go into the rubbish bins. And because we don't see it, we don't really think about it so much, which is very sad. So our challenge over the next little while is to challenge our thinking and to look at our food waste and really open our eyes and see what is going on with these resources that we are literally throwing away. Okay? So we're going to do some activities over the next couple of weeks. And I'm sorry I've spoken so long. But yeah, let's do some research and see what we can change, because every little change counts, doesn't it? All right, grade 3s or P3s, I'm sorry. If you have any questions, actually, that's an important thing. Please ask and ask and ask. I'm happy to answer any questions. All right, guys, have a great day and keep an eye on that food waste, all right? Bye.